Playground!
Hooray!
Hey! It's my song! Let's sing it! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Come on! It's gonna be fucking awesome! You know the words! It's gonna be fucking awesome! That's it! Sing! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Yeah!
Hello, hello, hello. It is I, Jesse Blaze Snider, the Coolest Geek Alive. How are you doing, my fellow Coolest Geeks? Care Bear stare out to all of you. I hope that things are going good in your life. It's been a moment of upheaval for myself and so many other people. A long moment of it. And if you're out there and you're going through difficulties, I understand. It's all good. It's going to get better. Like our great ratings. Like I mentioned our April ratings. We had like 700,000 plus downloads for Coolest Geek Alive. So cool. And another 400 and something plus, maybe like 450, 60,000 for All Your Favorite Bands Suck, which is my Monday night music show. If you're a music fan like me, I do a feature basically every Monday night on a different band. This past Monday, I did Nine Inch Nails. I'm doing DMX this week. Lots of humor bands, lots of punk bands, all sorts, a real wide range of musicians. So if there's any bands that you've been, interested in checking out, go check out the list. There's like 20, there's almost 30 now, different bands that you can check out that, I'm just going to help you get into their catalog real easy. Anyway, I do that every Monday night. And of course, we do this show on Saturdays. We do the Coolest Picks. I hope you guys are enjoying the Coolest Picks. This Saturday, I'm doing Escape from New York. I just rewatched it last night for fun, and I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to totally cover this since it's fresh in my mind. Great movie. Snake Plissken, man. Played by Kurt Russell. It's a good one. I'll talk about that on Saturday. But today, what am I here to talk about? I'm here to fucking arm you guys with information. Like the information that you need. Not even so much. Well, yeah. Like, I think I'm going to make, like, the subject for this this show, just a list of all of the great fucking female characters that we love. And I'm going to go through it in a little bit because I made, like, a list, and I made a list of some of the bad ones because right now they're trying to change the narrative. They're adjusting the way they're talking about the geek culture commentary from the true fans on this material. And they're adjusting it in a very specific way. They are now pointing to anybody who using the word woke in comments or reviews is automatically run out. And I talked about Rotten Tomatoes last week. They can literally go in and use keywords, whatever keywords they want to use, to go, oh, this is a racist comment. Well, now with this narrative, they can go in and they can remove your critiques. Yeah, they can take your comments off of the thing because they'll be searching for keyword. Oh, well, they said woke, so that's clearly a racist demographic. This is the Republican crazy contingent that they are imagining exists within geekdom. I'm here to tell you it does not exist. It's not true. And this is coming from a person who has always leaned Democrat my entire life, which is why I know first and foremost how corrupt they really are. And the Republicans are ultimately just as corrupt at the end of the day, though there are occasionally people in that party who do believe what they are saying. And you may not agree with them, and I don't usually agree with them, but believing what they're saying, I do appreciate more than what has been going on in sort of the Democratic Party. I'm 41. Since my whole life of watching it, I have always voted for Democratic candidates for the most part. I cried when Obama was inducted into office. I fucking hated George Bush with a goddamn passion. I was one of the first people to speak out against Trump, even though I have a more neutral sort of attitude about him these days, and especially because it's about the people, and and I know plenty of people who supporting Trump, and I understand their reasons. I understand their motivations, and it's always about changing your perspective so that you can like look at this thing in a new way. And so, for the people out there who lean left, please know and understand I am you. Like this extreme and pushy version of the left, I do not agree with. I just do not think it's a very polite way to get your point across. I think that it does more damage. It doesn't help us to, the gay community and the alternative community, and I consider myself a part of it because I'm a weirdo. I'm a non-binary or whatever the fuck. I hate those fucking terms. Let me just get that right out of the way. I hate that I've been like having to talk about the fact that I'm non-binary, but I want to identify myself with that group because I identify with that group. So many of my friends are in that group. I'm a very open-minded individual, and I really believe that everybody should be able to pursue whatever sort of happiness that they want. But that idea of the pursuit of happiness and don't get in the way of what I want to do has been replaced by we're here and we're queer and get used to it kind of thing, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in the Doctor Who, when I get to Doctor Who and what's going on right now with the Judy Godwa Doctor Who, which is just, it's not that I have zero problem with, representation. I have zero problem with a show starring a gay man with magical powers running around doing fun fucking gay stuff. I really do. That sounds fun. Who knows what they might get up to. But I do have a problem with an overfocus on the sexuality, for one, because just in all the straight literature, that's not what I'm interested in. That's not what we're interested in. That generally doesn't get the audience going. There's usually like a moment in a movie, and it's like 45 minutes into the movie where like enough struggle has gone on, where like a sex scene will happen, and it feels earned. But like so often, there's this overcompensation going on when they're trying to represent the way the other world lives, and they're like, I don't love all the terms to describe it, but sort of waving it in your face. And, I'm very different, but I don't believe in waving it in anybody's face. It's sort of my business. I've talked about this before. I'm a very feminine kind of guy by nature. If you see me walking around, I carry myself very masculine. I appreciate masculine things. But my nature is very feminine. And, that, why was I saying that? But I really don't believe that I need to fill anybody in on my not my difficulty. What not difficulties? My peculiarities. I don't like any of these words. My uniqueness. I'm unique. I think everybody's unique. That whole LGBTQ spectrum, I think it's insane because it's just like there's not there's not enough letters to cover all of the unique ways in which people can be sort of aligned. It's silly. A conversation about the idea that there's really a lot of different ways that people can sort of feel and express love is a great conversation. But it's kind of crazy. As somebody on the spectrum and as somebody who's always been fighting my whole life for my friends and everybody, in that community to get the right respect and the right space. But then there's like a point in time where you start pushing up against the straights, a bit. In just like, and it's subtle. What's like it's sort of like an inflammatory antagonism, and it's very, very funny because it's happening. And if you haven't seen it, I'm telling you, it's there. I've seen enough in Hollywood. There's been a term coined by a friend of mine, I'm pretty sure, was fantagonism. The fantagonists, they antagonize the fans, clickbait, and they think it's funny. They live in a bubble, and they think that we're silly, and what we want is silly, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll just use them for press kind of thing, or whatever. But they're learning that the audience is on the fan's side. this current crop of Furiosa, which was good. I saw Furiosa with my son. We really liked Furiosa a lot, but nobody saw it. And of the people who saw it, this more female-focused version of Mad Max, series, right? Guess how many females saw it? You think that less people saw it, but more women saw it, right? No. There's an 80% decline in the female audience for Fury Road to Furiosa. So they went from Fury Road to Furiosa, this badass chick movie, and far less women saw it. That's something like, for every 10 women that saw Fury Road, 2 saw the other thing. But like it's scaled down for percentage. Less people saw the movie in general. But meanwhile, if you're a man in the community commenting on one of these films, especially if you shorthand it down to fucking woke, I mean, it's just, you get like destroyed. And meanwhile, it's actually the female audience is abandoning these movies more so than the men. The females are more sexist than the men. The men are like, all right, badass woman, okay. Like there's enough of us that are like, okay, we'll see that. and the women are like, yeah. And why? Because they've become these silly tropes. And I want to kind of teach you how to talk about these things a little bit and, be ready. I want you to be armed with this list. It's like the next time you say Acolyte sucks, it's just fucking woke as fuck and just so stupid and blah, blah, blah. And somebody's like, that's just sexist, whatever. But granted, I wouldn't use the word woke. I would actually retire that word so that we don't get fucking dismissed. And you point to the other things, which we will talk about, how they've turned that modern day representation. This is what you said. Tell me about modern day representation for females, and we'll go over this with gays too. But modern day representation for females does a disservice to females. It is so often done incorrectly, and it is just awful and terrible. And there's so many that you can list, and like the bad ones, Last Jedi and Mulan, the movie version, as opposed to the animated version, She-Hulk, Velma, Rings of Power with Lady Galadriel and helpless male elves beside her, watching, Doctor Who, and first it's like the lady Doctor Who's better than the male Doctor Who, and then it's like the non-binary trans Doctor Who's the greatest one of all. This is just it's just some funny shit. How about the recent Wendy and the Peter Pan and Wendy series, where they completely missed the whole point of Wendy, and I'll talk about that when we talk about the good ones in just a second. But I'm just going down this list. STD's Black Lady Spock, I forget what her fucking name is. Michael, maybe something like that. She's the bestest ever, as Doomcock on YouTube likes to say. Captain Marvel, you were it all along, Carol Danvers. Ant-Man 3, it worked in Ant-Man, his character being sort of hapless and having the Wasp kind of playfully jibe him when like they have a relationship, but then like when his daughter's doing it on top of it and everybody else is doing it, like it's just like, and he becomes just like a joke in his own movie, overshadowed by so many stupid things. I hate that fucking movie. But great example. Ahsoka, stiff as fuck on TV, but like, I'm going to get into my good list in a second because I want to arm you with that. Thor, Love and Thunder, it sucks because the comic books were great. And, but they didn't put any of the stuff in that mattered to make the Jane Foster journey matter. And we just end up with the stoic Thor chick and freaking stoic Valkyrie in a suit. And how about the Batgirl TV series that DC did, or the new Terminator? There's so many for a pattern to have emerged, and there's so many major ones, and there's so many more, like even more like mainstream movies and whatnot. What I'm saying is the audience has noticed this stiff, arrogant, abrasive, kind of too perfect, sexless, joyless, emotionless, bland, condescending, and unappealing female character that has become the norm. And on the male side of things, there's like sniveling males to go along with all of this in every piece, and even in pieces where the males have just been like neutered in how they approach things and what they do what they do in the series. Like, this is like fucking fantasy. It's supposed to be, stuff that's more interesting to see in real life. And everybody's like pulling back on the masculinity. But what have we seen about Furiosa? We injected some extra femininity into Furiosa. Not that we really did. It's like just as masculine as ever. But there's a female lead. And what happens? More of the women leave. The women don't like this representation. I don't either. It's terrible. What is some good represent? Oh, and I wanted to say that all of these women too, they end up being the end result of a classic sort of. They're like, their character is the end result of what shortchange women and other writers think of as a classic male badass who's like perfect in every way. But the classic male badass always has a fucking, a journey of earning the fuck out of these things. And there's a tendency on like two levels. There's always been a little thing in Hollywood and everywhere of not wanting to hurt women on screen. I don't know about you. I have a little bit of a trouble with it when I watch UFC and stuff. And I realize it's related a little bit to like a protective sort of idea that I have about my mother and my sister, that like I'm supposed to keep them safe, and like seeing a woman be hurt, like it's hard. And audience, it's been known that audiences don't really love to see women or children hurt or animals. My girl, she can't see a dog be hurt on screen. That's like, like an animal be hurt in any way. Like she'll literally just stop a movie dead. Because I used to have another girlfriend who would stop a movie dead because she was so terrified of the animals. Mine loves animals, but if you hurt the animal on screen, she can't. I hate this movie. It's hysterical. But people have a really strong reaction to that. So this is like a real thing that has been known. And then because of that, which has always been tried and true in this age of the powerful badass woman, there's the reluctancy to hurt the woman, but we want to show how badass this woman is. So, very rarely do we get women getting beat up really badly. One of the great things of a movie like Die Hard or any of the classic male characters is we don't mind seeing them get the shit beat out of them. And the more they do, the more we want them to get their end result, and the more we're invested in what they're going through because it's real pain and whatever else. So there's a lot of different reasons why women get the short end of the stick this way. And it's sexist. It's sexist. They go too light on the women, and it makes the stories not as enjoyable. Like the women should be represented. There's so many of these stories where, like, The Last Jedi is a perfect example. I mean, if Rey's journey felt earned by the audience in that film, like that would have changed everything about how that movie was seen. But instead, it was kind of just like, yeah, no, I'm the best ever at doing this. No big deal. If it was something where she was really taken under Mark Hamill's wing and he struggled and, slowly got her stuff over time and blah, 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 and the audience felt like she earned it. When it comes to character stuff like this, especially, like in an established universe, there's like, you got to think about wrestling and putting characters over, and this guy beats this guy and that guy beats this guy and this guy's a heel for that guy. And then he turns into a good guy. And but getting somebody over, with the audience is important. And generally speaking, the one surefire way to get yourself over with the audience is to give your character something that they desperately want. The more desperately they want it, or the more desperately they need it, the better, or the more, invested you are in the idea that they should have it. on any level. You know, like if it's something that's just like, oh, that's just right. You know, like they took that away from them. They should have that. But then it's about putting them through such paces as to make your audience beg you as a writer to give them the thing they want. Because that's what the audience is here to see. The audience is here to see them succeed. And, you know, you really just, the harder you can make it on your characters, the better for your characters. And all of these women right now and all of these actors, I feel like they are being screwed by the writing, by the direction, by the production. I think a lot of them are putting a terrible taste in an audience's mouth because they've been given some terrible things to say and some terrible ways to act and whatever else. And under the right circumstances, they could be blowing people's mind with some cool shit. But instead, they're playing these stilted, near-perfect women that are just not right. You know, there's an observable reality when it comes to things, you know. And it's so funny because I was like, people, you know, like will like try to call like racism on like an observable reality. Look at the NBA. I don't like to look at color, but you do notice something about generally who's there. And part of it is height. But in general, in sports, you can notice an observable reality is that there is a higher percentage of African Americans who are killing it in so many of these sports that were dominated by white people for so long or whatever else. And now there has been a correction in that. And the observable reality says that on whatever level, whatever explanation that, you know, might be put to it, that there's a little bit of something extra in the tank here for these people. There's observable realities about men and women. I remember I was on the track team. I was one of the fastest people on the track team, but I'm not much of a racer. I'm great on the football field because if there's a ball, like I'll go after it, like I will get there before anybody else because I have something to go after. But like in a race, I'm not super committed. But you know, most people I can beat in a race because I'm pretty very, very fast. And I remember I was just kind of jogging, and the fastest girl on the girls' track team basically came up beside me and started like getting ahead of me, sort of like, you know, like let's have a race sort of thing. And we raced, and I just demolished her. My mom, who's an amazing freaking runner, and she was on the boys' track team, and I know she did pretty well, you know, running with the boys and outran tons of the boys. But when you're talking about the peak of the boys, the people who would show up in a fight, the people who are training to do whatever, men who are trained and and observable reality, like this is why this observable reality of like some of these trans athletes going into the thing, there's an observable reality of that person is so much taller and that person is so much larger and that person we know has denser bones and like, you know, so it's a much more complex conversation, especially when it comes to hurting people getting hurt, people getting beat up. When this is acknowledged in film, it actually makes the brave women that much braver. The stakes are real. But they're figuring it out. They're at a disadvantage. But they grabbed a wrench or they hit him in the balls. They figured out something clever. They used their minds. They used their compassion. The fact that they were thoughtful on some level saves the day. You know, like there's so many ways to have rich female characters through that perspective, through the observable reality that there is a little bit of a tier system here physically between men and women. To not observe it is the similar sort of effect that you have when you do Rings of Power, and you don't observe that the Rings of Power universe was set up, you know, in sort of a variation of our reality. And there were other races to be had, and there were there were ways that you could have kind of gone about this thing, but just in kind of mixing and matching in whatever way that you really saw fit, kind of just leads to a lot of confusion about the world that you're living in, as opposed to any clear, simple thought that we see that could be put into it. You know, like the audience likes it when, like, yeah, like in our world, I came from Poland, and you know, my girlfriend came from Germany, and we came together, and blah blah blah, and then they married a Hispanic person, and you know, like it's like the genesis and genealogy of family tree, like that stuff's cool, like when it can be respected and woven into a story. And there would have been ways to get more inclusion into the story if they wanted to, that wouldn't have necessarily broke canon. There's so many things that they could have done. I mean, look, I'm a professional writer. So, you know, I'm somebody who sits here and loves the thing. And then, like, you know, they come and they give me their notes. And then, like, I try to figure it out to, like, save them from their fuck up. Like, case in point, and granted, I wasn't able to save them from their fuck up. But when DC Comics came to me with Dead Romeo, I was such a superficial choice for it too, because they knew I was like a musician and like a kind of handsome guy or whatever, and they're like, oh, vampire romances are popular right now. Maybe we could get one going with at DC, and we had vampires in hell. Let's have vampires escapes from hell. This was the pitch that they gave me, and we'll hire Jesse Blaze Snider, right? Ha ha ha. So like, I knew that was a terrible pitch to the comic buying audience, and that they weren't really going to be into that. But I came up with a whole bunch of plans to sort of mitigate those circumstances. Like I said, okay, if it's a vampire coming back from hell, and then hell sends, you know, people after him, kind of thing. Why don't we have a bad guy from each level of hell, and we'll do the Dante's Inferno, the rings of hell, the 9 rings, and one guy comes back from each ring, and I'll pick some really great dead bad guys who might be in each ring of hell. And like one of the most inspired choices was Lobo, who was in the 9th ring of hell, the level for treachery, because he killed his whole race. You know, what's more treacherous than that? It's a cool one. And Jonah Hex was coming back, and all these different people. Cool people that the audience would be like, oh, great. I know like a character named Manchester Black was a little bit of a deeper cut for geeks all out there. I'll know what I'm talking about. But characters that would have meant something to a comic book reader, and it would have been an opportunity, excuse, to see these characters who were dead back in action for a minute. So, of course, the first thing that they did was make me remove that and just turn them all into original characters. And it still gave the book, you know, the Dante's Inferno angle was cool, and, you know, there was some depth to what I was doing. So it was all right with me, and I was like, all right, well, they'll all be cool original characters that I make. Then they maybe get rid of the fucking Dante's Inferno angle and just do like a standard vampire or werewolf thing. And like so much, this is what happens of like, you know, what comes down from the top. They're just like, do it like this. And they'll give these blanket notes. And, you know, you got to tell people, I believe that blanket notes from studio executives about, you know, diversity and equity inclusion are leading to white women being framed constantly as sort of arrogant and abrasive and stiff and kind of perfect and sexless and joyless and emotionless and bland and condescending and very unappealing. And I think it's doing a great disservice to the women's movement and to women in general. And if you look at the numbers, you'll see that the female audience has actually bailed out the most. You know, and I have a whole episode that I went over a whole bunch of things before this FURIOSA data came out. This FURIOSA data says a lot, man. You know, what is it? Me and my son Grayson, we went to go see FURIOSA. We had a great time. It was great. But the audience, especially the female audience, is like, yawn. You know, so when you get into these, especially if it's with a woman, you got to go, listen, I don't want to argue with you. I really want to level with you. I think you would be good to recognize that the women have actually bailed out of these quote unquote feminized versions or more inclusive versions of this material. They want the men. They like the men as an audience the same way a smaller portion of the men require the men. But the men actually like the women. So we stick around a little bit more than the female audience does. And people like me who are going, hey, in general, this could be better, like I'm more representing the female audience than I'm representing the male audience. There's more of your fellow women who are like, nah, I'm not interested in Furiosa. I'm not interested in any more of this girl power, quote from Emily Blunt. As soon as I see powerful woman, in my script, I just go, yawn, because I know what it's going to be. And meanwhile, she's responsible for like 3 great, powerful women that I can think of. And like I said, I'm going to put this list in the subject here. But the next time somebody accuses you of sexism or blah 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 being fucking whatever in any way, list off. Well, why do I love ARCANE so much? And why did I enjoy Wednesday so much? Or What Happened to Monday, that movie which I did a coolest pick on. If you didn't see What Happened to Monday, it's great. Or why was I totally cool with The Force Awakens? It was Last Jedi that I fucking hated, and the one after that I hated. Force Awakens, I was excited. Why did I like Hawkeye until they fucked up Kingpin in the last episode? Because Kate Bishop was cool. She's studying underneath Hawkeye and Clint Barton, and she's learning from a mentor. She doesn't really know what she's doing. She keeps getting in over her head. Also appearances by Black Widow 2, who audiences really like. I think middling. Black Widow was a bit of like a just kind of bland for other reasons. Because we liked Black Widow and it was just like a little too late. But I think we all agreed that we liked the Yelena Black Widow too, and she shows up in Hawkeye and strong woman. And generally the audience was really digging that. We hated Hawkeye because the last episode and they fucked Kingpin, and just for Echo, like, it was just so lame. And I mean, Echo is terrible in the fucking Hawkeye series too. But what you gonna do? How about some other positive ones? Princess Leia. How about Ellen Ripley across the fucking Aliens franchise? How about the original Wendy? And, this is the big problem with the stupid idiots who are running Hollywood right now, because they're making superficial changes that often are destroying real powerful messaging. In the case of Peter Pan, Wendy is a metaphor for being more thoughtful and feminine like a girl. The Lost Boys are boys because they're fucking idiots. And Wendy comes there and she changes the dynamic of things by offering a feminine energy to these lost boys. And I understand that you might go, well, there's lots of different people with different energy. Yeah, I know. I'm one of the people with different energy. But I could imagine that I was one of the fucking people in the freaking Lost Boys. Like, I don't have to know that they're fucking gay and non-binary or whatever. Like, if you're a girl and you're non-binary or whatever, you can totally imagine that you're one of the fucking people in the Lost Boys or whatever. It's like these things aren't difficult, and it's a simple metaphor that was really designed to put a positive spotlight on the feminine and what that has to offer and how they're different, and how beneficial that proper mothering energy can be to a person. We now know through a lot of statistics that fathering energy is just as, if not more important. I mean, single fathers have very, very good track records in society with their kids, which has been interesting to me when you see those numbers. It's very interesting. Numbers can be manipulated in lots of different ways, but there's certain numbers that are hard to ignore when it says, sort of simple sort of like results. Well, what are the results we're talking about? Well, we're talking about emotional results, and we're talking about successful results and things like that. And is being more successful them being happier? Like, so, it is a thing, and ultimately it all ends up being sort of in the middle. Both are important. Mothers are important, fathers are important. The only reason why I point to, they even say is maybe it's a little bit more, like there's some evidence, it's just because it's been skewed the other way for so long. But both are very important. Weird ass thing that we got going here where they're like, you're a sexist. Okay, well, what about the leading ladies of Avatar? What is it, Toph? And is it Soka? Or I don't know if I'm getting the boy's name right, but they're front and center the whole show. Fucking, it's one of my favorite shows ever. So many people's favorite shows. How about Tomb Raider? I never thought Tomb Raider movies were great. People love Tomb Raider. Girls and boys, they love fucking Tomb Raider. Or Red Sonya, the long-running comic book. Red Sonya, Vampirella, Lady Death. I know a lot of people are like, well, that's like their sexy books and stuff. Still, they are women, and we are men, and we are not naysaying or shouting down the idea of there being a powerful woman. I'm telling you. Wonder Woman, Supergirl, Comic Book She-Hulk, which is great. I love Comic Book She-Hulk. Comic Book She-Hulk is so cool because Jen Walters is the opposite of the Hulk, Bruce Banner, in a very key way. Whereas Bruce is desperately trying to get rid of his powers and is like cursing having them and, you know, his inability to live his life. Jen is grateful for her powers. Jennifer Walters' fundamental character trait is gratitude. That's why the audience loves her so much. She's grateful. She's got a good job. She makes good money. And whenever she wants to, she can turn into this beautiful green goddess. And she's invulnerable and like meets interesting people. And like, that's the thing. Like, it's like, I'm with the Fantastic Four. This is so cool. I'm so honored. Everything about Jen is grateful. The depiction of her in the TV show is so ungrateful and so lame. It was so disappointing to see Jennifer Walters depicted like that. It was this, they went, well, she's a She-Hulk, right? So she's going to be angry. You're fucking idiots. Jennifer Walters' She-Hulk is one of my favorite characters in Marvel Comics. And if they had accurately depicted her in the show, like, people would have just fallen in love with her. Like, she's like a total Julia Roberts type character, you know, where you're just like, oh, you just love her in the movie because she's just sweet and grateful. Invisible Woman, you know, anchoring the Fantastic Four. It's so funny, you know, you want to love the Thing or the Human Torch, but so often in the great Fantastic Four stories, you're like, but I love Invisible Woman, you know, like, because she's the mom and she's there in the middle and she's taking care of everybody. She cares about everybody and she's linchpin, you know, like that's important. That's great. Somebody who gives a shit being in your group, in your movie, you know, like, I like that. Those are wonderful people. I like people that give a shit. I give a shit. I relate to that. The women of the X-Men. Oh my God, so many fucking women. We freaking love these women. Love these women. Storm and Rogue and Psylocke and fucking Mystique and just like the list goes on. There's so many freaking great women in X-Men. Liliana. I play Marvel Snap with my kids all the time, so I like, you know, like, it's basically like all Marvel cards. It's really fun. If you need something to like play with your kids, it's like a card game with like 3 little tabletops, and you got to win two out of the 3 locations. I gotta get a fucking sponsorship from Marvel Snap if I'm gonna talk about their shit. Like, but I play with my kids and it's super fun. So it's just Ileana. Like, I say that to myself sometimes when I play her because she's card number 3 and she switches it to the limbo pad, which means that you get a 7th turn, and like, it's always better to play with a 7th turn, yo. More you can do. Okay, so the X-Men rule. You got Evelin from The Quiet Place, another Emily Blunt character. I don't know if I mentioned any of the other great Emily Blunt ones yet. Or did I not? What I wanted to say, what's the end? What's the Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt movie? I thought I wrote it down. It's like Rise, Kill, Repeat or something like that was the original title. The Edge of Tomorrow. That's it. Edge of Tomorrow with Emily Blunt. She's fucking insane in that movie. It's so awesome. Love that shit. And it's funny too because she's kind of stoic in there, but there's more going on. And I'm sure there was more going on when she read her script. It probably said something along the lines of, strong soldier with an intense distrust behind her eyes. Something has happened to her, and she is completely devoid of the answers to what it all means and what's going to happen next. Something like that. Because there's definitely something to her performance beyond the fact that she is this strong, stoic lady. And, she's playing a great badass mom, taking care of her kids in A Quiet Place. I once yelled at this motherfucker at a comic convention because he said something in passing, and it was like a joke, but it wasn't exactly a joke, about how all of our families would be a liability in like a post-apocalypse, and like he'd be going around taking all these people out kind of thing and like stealing from them kind of thing. And I told this dude off so bad. I was just like, I can't believe you have the balls to say that out loud. And let me just tell you what the mothers and fathers of this nation will do to a little piece of shit like you when you come calling in the name of protecting our children. And, and that's really the truth, and best displayed, I think, often. Like, it's like, you don't got to give all the good lines to the dads. It just so happens that this is a more effective, pointed statement usually when a mom is doing it. Occasionally when a father is doing a similar thing in a similar way, fathers will have different sort of ways of going about this that might generally be a little bit more fitting for them. But, there are all variations of this thing, but that is the powerful maternal instinct that fathers have as well and mothers have as well. So much of this thing about and this is another piece of your argument that you should be bringing up here, is that people have a mistaken idea about masculine and feminine. Like, they make it like just because you're a girl, you're feminine. There are a wide range of boys, many of them straight, like me, non-binary. I still go out with girls, but I am very different, and I always thought of myself very different, and certainly like I'm not like homophobic at all or whatever. I'm very like I know what I am, and it's definitely different than everybody else. But I'm unique, and like, I'm sure like I'll like make a whole bunch of little notations on my little non-binary or whatever it might be. I always make the joke, even though it's ultimately true, of like, if somebody asks me I'm gay, I'm like, not yet, or not today. Or you never know what the future may bring, because it's ultimately true. It's sort of like a commitment to a thing. And like, I'm not attracted to men, but I don't know, I wouldn't make some sort of anchor in myself of like, it must only be this way, so that if ever I was attracted to men, I would have some voice in my head that went, no, you're terrible for thinking that. Don't think that. That's terrible. That's gay. So, I would say I have just a very sort of even view of all the things. Like, it doesn't really matter. Doesn't change how I feel about you in any way, shape, or form. So this thing about men have the masculine energy, girls have the feminine energy, is making us cast and elect masculine women who act like men. That's not the ushering in of the matriarchy. That's more patriarchy. We're just giving the patriarchy tits. It's a patriarchy with tits, as opposed to what we really want, which is a matriarchy, which would have tits and dicks, and it would be made up of people that were more like me, and I'm sure a lot of you in the audience, who are just a little bit more even-keeled and balanced, and were in touch with their feminine side, maybe very anchored in it like me, or maybe just in touch with it enough and empathetic enough to be able to roll in an empathetic world. That's what we want to live in. And those are the types of females that we want to be getting into our films. And so many of these characters, like Ripley is a great example, with her and Newt in the Aliens movie, and her trying to take care of her and all that, and just like literally her in her arms, and a mother trying to take care of a child. It's just beautiful. And the same thing goes for Linda Carter in the Terminator films. The transformation that she makes, in that one you get a 2-movie arc, because the first Terminator movie, if you've never seen the original Terminator, she's just, kind of a girl, just really a regular person, and she finds out that she's going to be giving birth to the Messiah, and she hooks up with Michael Bihn's character, and she ends up getting knocked up with the Messiah, which is a paradox, which is like blows everybody's mind. What does it mean? I don't know. But in the second movie, because of the events of the first movie, she has changed, and she's a new person, and she's taught herself to be really tough because she needs to for the future that she knows coming. And that's what a cool journey. And then the leading carrot of that is, it's my son. I got to protect my son because he's important, not just to me but for the future, which is really cool because it's like every mother and father, or at least a lot of the mothers and fathers out there, we have a connection to our children, a desire to protect them. Well, imagine your desire to protect them was also tempered by the reality that it was a responsibility beyond just your love for them, but that if anything happened to them and there were people trying to kill them, if anything did happen to them, the future, like you have to save the future by keeping your child safe. So it just makes that idea of keeping your child safe that much more extreme. That's always the best thing. I talked about this many episodes ago, but John Carpenter's The Thing is a really good example of this. John Carpenter's The Thing is really a movie about distrust. And, everybody, it ends with the two guys thinking that they might be the aliens, and they freeze to death, and you kind of don't know where it ends. It's Keith David and Kurt Russell at the end. But they use this alien coming down and taking over people, and they don't know who's an alien and they don't know what's what. They use that as a means to show distrust amongst people in a very extreme way that you wouldn't see in normal everyday life. And thus it brings it out so richly. So, I mean, this is these are great ways to do these things. You know what? I wanted to, I should add to that bad or middling, the Incredibles movie. There's this huge focus on Mrs. Incredible. And all of her stuff is just so stiff and boring and just not really fun. And I love the Incredibles movies, but just what they do with her, and it's very on the nose, a little annoying. The stuff with Mr. Incredible is amazing, but I felt like Mrs. Incredible got the shaft here. Here's the thing. It's I'm not saying that, and you're oh, you're just hating. No, I'm not hating. I'm loving. I love Mrs. Incredible, and I'm she really got the short end of the stick here. This really is no fun. What they have her doing. It's press conferences and all this bullshit, and her story. The mystery isn't very good. You can kind of see it coming from a mile away. This lady's the bad guy. Incredibles 2 is really a letdown on the front of women. It's another mark in the, this isn't the kind of representation you want, guys. And I really think that that's some of the main bit of what needs to be said by the fandom from now on. This is not the representation we want. And it's not the representation we want, but the representation you want. This is not the representation women want. This is not the representation gays want. It's just it's the truth. So going down my list of incredible fucking female characters that we all love, how about Clarice? How about Vasquez from Aliens? How about the long-running Buffy series, which male-starring series launched out of her series? Or Marianne Ravenwood from the Indiana Jones series that people love her. And she's a great, spunky, fun, character like that. I always loved her as a kid. Or Scully from X-Files and all the fucking badass women and all these fucking cops. I don't watch a lot of cop shows and shit, but in the more fun, stuff. Or Aowen, one of the Aowen's, what Aowen does in that movie is so powerful because she's so scared. She's fighting this dude and he's frightening. He just killed her king. She's the idea that she is not as strong as the men helps make that so much more powerful. And that's okay.
it's okay that in general, and like, like speaking in generals is how we are speaking. Like, you have to sort of generalize a thing. We have to have a word for water, not just the water by your house and the water by my house. No, I said water by my house. I said water in general. There's a in general, this is water. It's clear. If you shake it, there'll be bubbles. I don't know how exactly you would want to describe it. But if you kind of understand what I'm saying, versus like, oh, it's shaped like this and it's this deep and there's this fish in it and whatnot, like that's a much different discussion about water. And and you can get into specifics and I like feel like people are like doing themselves such a disservice. It's like, now if you see on a book like non-binary author so and so, like I feel like it just like pigeonholes you and makes you less interesting, because it seems like you're just a follower of one of the things. And like, I think we're all like unique butterflies. Like, you'll never see that on any of my shit. Like, I don't give two shits about that. Even though in theory, like, that simple explanation describes me. When you look into non-binary, like, it's like, yeah, I get that. Yep. Mm-hmm. So to finish my list here, and again, I'm going to have this posted in my subject thing. You got Kill Bill's bride and every other fucking sexy badass ninja chick that we've all ever loved. Cara Thrice. Who's Cara Thrice? Oh, the chick from Battlestar Galactica. Like, people fucking love her. What's her name? Starbuck. The Osaka in the animated series, I should say, was great. The thing that you loved the most about Ahsoka in the animated series was how much she looked up to and understood Anakin Skywalker, who would be Darth Vader, in a way that nobody else did. She supported him, and she was his champion. He was her teacher, she was his Padawan, and she saw that he got like a lot of flack from other people, and she was his defender. And God, it just made you love her so much, especially because he was a tragic guy. You knew he was ending up for a tragic end, and you also knew that like the way that she was supporting him was the right way to support him, to a large degree, and the way he was being treated often by the council because of their distrust of him and his power and all these different things. It definitely, that's the stuff that like drove him further and further away. And she was like the anchor for his goodness during all of those shows. And man, like, it's just the same thing of like Monsters Incorporated. Boo is the anchor for Sully's goodness. In Wreck-It Ralph, Penelope von Sweets is the anchor for Ralph's goodness. When women can bring out the best in men. Oh crap! It's making me cry. I was literally gonna say like it makes me want to cry. And everybody, it does everybody. The especially hardened men who have dealt with hard things and hard lives. So many of the people, they don't understand that a lot of sexism comes from like a defense mechanism of, it's a really hard world out there, and I don't want you. I don't want you to be hurt. There's so many people who might hurt you. You have no idea. And a lot of people have had those sort of experiences that have led them to viewing the world that way. I happen to have it on very good authority from ancient masters that if you expect that, you unfortunately just get more of it. And you have to think better and not expect that, and, get more from the world when you expect to get good things from it. And since I changed my mind about what I expect from the world, I have always gotten, my interactions with human beings are like near perfect. Very rarely have any bad interactions with anybody, because I believe that I always get the best out of everybody. That I always just happen to know, they happen to know, we just happen to link up at the right vibration at the right time to tell the right joke, to say the right thing, and it's just always beneficial no matter who I meet. Because I understood that if I believed something like that I believed other things before, and that I was getting that same thing back over and over again. So I changed what I believed very specifically, and it worked for me like 100%. And even if it's the fact that when something does go a little bit wrong, I still, kind of like see the best in it, because in general, that's the way I've decided to look at things. Anyway, the Osaka animated and the female character supporting the misunderstood or scary male character when nobody else will, or in the right way that nobody else could, and like that's just so important and powerful to so many stories. And I think another thing that like is lost too is like people put too much emphasis on being the lead character, being the linchpin that makes it all work out is just as great. It's just as important. Like, these lead characters that we so often see, to some degree might change places with Gandalf. It's like just because they're the lead doesn't mean that they're the best or they're the everything. So often the lead character is just the person who's best to sort of experience the thing from their perspective. But it's not everything. And there have been great women beside the great men, in every fucking movie under the sun for forever and ever. And a little bit of what needs to happen is the audience needs to better appreciate that role. So many character actors that people love, they're beloved because their characters meant something to the films they were in. They came in and they did something important. They were giving in the right way. They were encouraging in the right way. They showed up at the right time. Whatever it is, that is really, that's worth so much. When we start thinking about all these characters as men and women, or black and Hispanic and white and Indian and whatever the fuck we're doing, we actually do them all a great disservice, because we take them from a place of infinite possibility, and then all of a sudden we feel this need to anchor them from the place of their culture, but not really from any particularly authentic place of their culture, but generally a stereotype, a very simplistic idea of their culture. When we were writing about white people mostly, all the white people had to be uniquely different in their journey. And it seems to be like shorthand now when it's like, oh, well, they're black, so obviously their journey was different. Well, like, in what way? And there's a lot of different black experiences. It's not to say even like there's a lot of different, like there's infinite black experiences. There's infinite Hispanic experiences. There's infinite female experiences and infinite male experiences. There's so many. But the moment we put it up as a thing, now all of a sudden we're clinging to this grid and everything starts to homogenize. The homogenization of the way women are depicted on screen, I find deplorable, across the board. I think it's just really like, fucking up the balance of the art, and the characters are sort of like predetermined before they're written. Every character is like a cog in a clock that tells a good time. When you have executives coming in and going, make this character this and make that character that, like the whole thing needs to be really rewritten. A new clock needs to be made if you want it to be like that. If you do it from the get-go, that's fine, because you can build it the right way. Like this case in point, the Doctor Who shit. This Judy Gatwa thing is, it's very, very frustrating. This is not the representation we want. This is going into a beloved science fiction franchise that's always had a certain sort of aesthetic that has gone along with science fiction, like authors of and these sorts of writings, and has kept a certain vibe about it, and a relative consistency between doctors on some fundamental levels. to essentially go into that world and urinate all over it is not a good look for the gay community. Don't lambaste me for going, hey, I don't have anything. I know you don't have anything to do with it. It's this silly representation that's going too far, where they're like, we're going to bring this thing that doesn't necessarily fit here. And granted, there are ways that they could have made this work, perhaps. But it's been a very definitively, seemingly perfectly, purposely divisive sort of take on the character, where the assumption seems to be that the audience fundamentally wouldn't like gay people. So fuck you, we're taking over your thing with gay people. And then when the audience is like, we don't like this, they're like, haha, we knew you didn't like gay people. And I don't believe that the audience has any problem with gay people. And I was going to make a big list of like fucking gay characters from, there's so many. But it's always about the, I recommended this movie the other day. If you've never seen In and Out with Kevin Kline, great fucking movie. Really, really funny. He basically gets outed by one of his students. He's a teacher. And he's like, the student's winning an Oscar, and he's like, I need to thank my acting coach from high school. And he's gay because he played a gay character in the movie. And the guy's like, I'm not gay. And insanity ensues from there. It's quite humorous. But there is humor and fun and so many different things in the gay community, and so many fun things that I might like to see starring a gay character, including them jaunting around doing some space shit, under the right, you got to give me more than just that, but what I'm saying is, the idea of that lead is of no problem to me. However, the idea of that lead in this instance is bizarre. It's basically like if somehow we switched like Reed Richards for like a flaming gay guy. And it would just sort of be like, this is weird. There are ways to introduce certain energies and new energies into various things, where they'll become part and parcel, and they will organically find their own way. But this feels like a very major sort of insulting departure, and honestly, I'm just saying it like this, right? My least favorite part of like society are the dogmatic people. In school, I thought it was just the religious people, but now in the modern age, really, really crazy extremist liberal people are just as dogmatic. And being a dogma, spouting person where, it's like, rah, 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 those aren't my favorite people. And I don't need to appease those people per se. However, I do believe in trying not to antagonize the people on the other side of the fence who are living differently than I'm living. I really believe that the approach right now on a lot of these levels and in a lot of the ways that this stuff happens is very antagonistic, especially to the contingent of the audience who, because of various religious fevers, and look, man, they didn't write the books and they didn't interpret the things the way they're being told that it's being interpreted and so many things. So there's a lot of people who are a little backwards about these things, and you got to try to be a little forgiving in just that they exist and that we can exist in harmony. But like something like this for the gay community, like I feel like this hurts us in terms of representation. It's like the next time we hear that there's a character in a movie and whatever, the lead's gay or whatever, like that it might turn us off to it because we really didn't like it when they shoehorned it into Doctor Who, and it just seemed that much more out of place and that much more like it was being waved in my face, and I didn't like that. I don't necessarily approve of that, but I'm making an exception for you, and I'm giving you the freedom to live, because this is the attitude of like somebody like that. You know, I'm Christian or whatever, and I don't think that that's the right thing, but you should be able to do whatever you want to do. But here you are coming into my Doctor Who, and like, and granted, I think there's a lot less of that even going on than what's really going on, which is just like, oh man, they're just kind of doing the same things over and over again. Oh man, this is so over the top. Like, I get it, he's gay. I'm not here for the gayness. I'm here for the science fiction. And like, I don't know about you guys, but like, I don't read anything for gayness. I don't think anybody reads anything for gayness, unless you're reading like erotic novels and shit. Like, and cool, go read some erotic novels. Like, when they try to bring in the gay aspect of the thing to the characters, whatever else, they just always seem to push it too hard so that it's unnatural, imbalanced, and sort of adds like a whole bit of like kind of yuckiness to the thing. Like I said, in a movie, there's 45 minutes and like there's a scene. It's like Spider-Man wasn't about Mary Jane like hooking up all the time. You know, eventually that happened, and occasionally you would see that happen, but it was not like, and once an issue, we got to see a gay kiss. I mean, once an issue, we got to see a hetero kiss. Like, that was happening sometimes. Like, the sex is like so minor. I've said before about like Spider-Man. Could have made Spider-Man gay and made Mary Jane Mark Jacob, and like, I don't think the stories would have changed much at all. And see, that's the thing. Like, there's a tendency to homogenize and make all the gay people the same, and like there's plenty of gay people who are very normal. That's how they like normal. I don't mean to be a dick by saying normal, but like very, you know, cookie cutter on every level, except they're not straight. And there's some who are fucking flamboyant and whatever, and then there's others that are a wide range of things. Like, it's just like it's so myopic and crazy how you see all these things broken down, and it sort of drives me crazy that my fellow people who think liberally don't see the racism and the way black people are generally portrayed. And like, I mean, granted, there's more and more and more good roles for black people, and there's more and more and more good roles for whatever. But most of the time, when it's like Star Wars or one of these things, then we're and this will be our black guy, and this will be our, like, I mean, when you just start picking races for the sake of the, like, it's just, this is the death of art, because you can't create something that's organic this way. And it's just, it's the fucking, it's the pits. It's the pits. So I'm going to wrap this thing up. I had a few more on my list. Everything Everywhere All at Once. Why didn't the audience hate that? We love that. Why wasn't everybody bitching about sexism then? When the movie's good, nobody's bitching. And remember, the women are leaving more than the men. So, you know, and maybe it seems like there's a differential online because the men are more willing to stand up for the audience than the women are willing to stand up for the audience, perhaps. I think that's probably true, especially because the women are a little bit more of a fair weather audience, and the men are the audience who generally are more autistic, and we get into these things deeper. Also, Barbie, which is a female-driven thing, but it was done well enough that a lot of men came out to the movie, and it had plenty of freaking audience for it, and everybody seemed generally like, yeah, it was fun, right? Even though that movie had some freaking male bashing in it that was really, but it was a balanced, you know, sort of thing, to some degree. Anyway, you know, and the big thing with like all of these characters that you see above, you know, like they're anti-victims, you know, and they're true to themselves. You know, like the lead character in ARCANE, you know, she's like refusing to sort of let the oppression of the world that she lives in beat her down. I forget what the character's name is, but she's one of the main characters. You know, as I said earlier, you know, women have the opportunity to be so much braver than the men who have a physical advantage when you are just honoring the reality that it would be more difficult for, like, that's great. Like, let's not forget that it is more difficult for a woman because there's not as many women who do go into those fields. My girl's an electrician. There's not that many people who go into those fields who are women. That's amazing. Like, I don't want the fact that what she's doing is fucking incredible on so many levels. She's doing man's work, as you know, and there's a reason why we call it man's work. And the reason why, you know, my ex-wife gets upset when she can't open the jar, And, she's got to call my son over because she doesn't want, a man, but and this is like a funny joke or whatever. But like at the same time, that's the reality, the observable reality. And everybody's looking, all this, the world of J.R.R. Tolkien's, Middle Earth, and the world of the Marvel Universe, and all these worlds that people want to go into. People want to go into worlds that make sense. And when you create worlds filled with these stilted characters that don't really make sense to anybody and don't really, like, inspire anybody to cheer, well, you've completely lost the plot, man. Anyway, I've got a comic book called Fucking for Our Future. It is on Kickstarter right now and for like the next 25 days or whatever. It is so funny. It's like an X-rated comic book or whatever, but it is so innocent and it is really ridiculous and fun. If you listen to my show and you know me and you know my personality, this is Jesse doing a titty book, something I never thought I would ever do. Sorry, but it came out fucking amazing. I did it with my buddy Dizzy Arnold. I've been working with him for a long time, and it's all done. It's all ready to go, and we're just doing all the pre-orders basically now for the book. So if you go to Kickstarter, you can find Fucking for Our Future. And actually, there's links if you just go to my publishing company, Blacklight District Studios website, which is www.bldsts.com. bldsts.com. Blacklight District Studios, BLDSTS. Anyway, I love you. I'm doing a new show that I don't know if it's going to be up yet, but it should be up soon by the time you hear this, called Everything They Don't Want You to Know. It's every Friday, and hope you'll check that out. It's like esoteric knowledge and wisdom from, like basically what the Freemasons are teaching each other and all that other shit. Things that they don't want you to know, if that interests you. And then Sunday night, me and my buddy Aaron Sparrow, we do a live stream called The Coolest Geeks Alive stream. Right now, I've been interviewing him about his career in publishing and working on licensed material for Disney and video games and stuff. It's quite cool. It's been a great time hanging with my buddy. I hope you come and join us for that. We do that around 11 o'clock. No, sorry. 11 o'clock Eastern time. And then like 8 o'clock Western time or 7 o'clock Western time, whatever it is. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening to this show. Thank you so much for making this a legit job for me, as I finally, we're getting numbers now that I'm actually starting to be able to pay bills. So thank you from the very bottom of my heart. Care Bear stare to you all, and I'll see you on Saturday with a review of Escape from New York. All right, and I hope you will join me again next Wednesday for another fucking awesome episode of The Coolest Geek Alive.
It's my song.
Love you.
Let's sing it. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Come on, it's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's it, sing. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Yeah! It's my favorite part. Isn't that heavy? I'll play that. Coolest alive.
You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.